April, the Jazz fall in Phoenix. How concerned are we about back-to-back nights where the shots don't fall? The Jazz half-court defense was brilliant, but they lose this one in transition and on the glass. We'll break it down, what it means for the playoff race, and more, all coming up on today's edition of Locked on Jazz. Pow! How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Well, the Jazz lose last night. Really, it was a big game. Let's not kid ourselves about it at all. Let's give credit to Phoenix. They were great. They were dialed in. They went for it. Chris Paul played. Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton all played 39 regulation minutes last night. So that team was dialed in. They wanted it. This was their quest for the 1 seed. They put themselves in it. I think there's an interesting game going on for both Monty Williams and Quinn Snyder right now, where they are trying to figure out, I think, prove to their teams that they belong. You know, it's cute that we as fan bases are upset about the doubters and all the people that are questioning whether the Jazz are legit and the Suns are legit and both fan bases. I actually think both coaches are trying to convince their teams that they're legit. To me, that's actually going on. In other words, Phoenix has decided they had to win last night. They had to get across to their team that they're good enough to win last night. That was as important to them as any game all season long, and they had to see if there was a way to prove that they were that good. And they did. They were terrific. They manhandled us physically in the half court. We didn't make shots. Partially, we didn't make shots because we didn't get shots. I don't feel against Dallas, I felt much more that we didn't make shots because we didn't make shots. Against Phoenix, I feel like there's a little bit more of we didn't make shots because they did a marvelous job, an absolutely marvelous job of taking the shots that we wanted away and blowing up our rhythm, and we never were getting comfortable. They were top blocking the wings. We couldn't get ourselves into into our handoffs. They denied a lot of our rhythm stuff in the first half, and we just didn't have it. The key to me in this game, there are two things that were the key to me in this game for the Utah Jazz and in the loss. One was the transition defense. This is our Achilles heel. The bigger issue is we didn't keep them out of transition. Now, one of the ways you keep them out of transition is you make shots, and we didn't make shots. So this all gets to be a cyclical item here. But they live in transition 18.5% of the time. That's what they were in last night. 18.3% of the time they were in transition. So that's about the 80th percentile. Like, that's a lot of transition. They averaged 1.5 points per transition. We're about 18th in the league in defense in transition. So that certainly was not good. We didn't get out in transition. We didn't run. And partially we didn't run because we didn't rebound. So these all come back around. But we didn't run last night. We were only in transition 12% of the time, according to Cleaning the Glass. Our half-court defense was incredible. Phoenix's half-court defense was incredible. Phoenix in the half-court last night, 81.5 points per 100 possessions in the 13th percentile. Phoenix has the fourth best half-court offense in the NBA, and we have the number one half-court defense, and the number one half-court defense won out. That's really important, and actually some of the best news I can possibly give you on the night. One of the things that, people ask is, can we still be elite defensively against the best offensive teams when they're shooting mid-range shots and they have these guys and, there is a feeling, and I would generally kind of agree with it, that Rudy Gobert, as great as he is, the best offensive players have an answer. Luka had an answer the night previously. And so on this night, the Jazz defense actually answered the bell. 100%. The half-court defense, we just didn't rebound. We didn't rebound for a few different reasons. One, we're really small. We're small at every position except for Rudy's. And we're probably not small if Joe's in as the three, but he and Boyan are pretty much the same size, and both of them are bad rebounders. So, if Royce gets in foul trouble last night, so he's not as active as he would have been, and he's, remarkably good rebounder for us. when Rudy comes out to impact the ball, then someone's got to rebound below. Rebounding percentages last night by our guys. Bojan Bogdanovic got 1.1% of all rebounds when he was on the floor. All right, let's just be fair. Let's only count defensive rebounds. 2.4%. It's terrible. Royce O'Neal, 11% of defensive rebounds available last night. That's our second best rebounder. To Donovan's credit, 18% of available rebounds he went and got. Joe Ingles, 3.6%. Clarkson, 3.3%. It's terrible. Mike Conley, 3%. It's hard to be on the floor as long as those guys were on the floor and not have a rebound fall in your lap. A long rebound. Conley, 1 rebound in 35 minutes. Bojan Bogdanovic, 1 rebound in 40 minutes. Joe Ingles, 1 rebound in 27 minutes. Jordan Clarkson, 1 rebound in 25 minutes. That's bad. And that was vital last night in the game. That was as big a problem as anything else last night was that. And we're small at every position, so you can't jump with people. And we can't jump. None of our guys are leapers. We're not Derek Jones you're going to see tonight for Portland, who you can just jump over people. So we can't go jump with people. We have to do the hard work. We've got to make physical contact. We've got to put our bodies into people. It's hard. And for 40 minutes, it's really hard. But you know what? Winning in the playoffs is really, really, really hard. So, transition defense. They were in transition too much last night. They got out and ran. They got those opportunities. Chris Paul has changed Devin Booker because Devin Booker's getting the ahead pass from Chris Paul in transition, and it's changing everything. I think Devin Booker had 13 field goals last night. I think 6 were in transition. I'd have to check it. But I wasn't wildly impressed. There were 2 great guards on the floor last night. They were Donovan Mitchell and Chris Paul. Devin Booker was okay, but he wasn't that level of either of those. And Chris Paul was amazing. Chris Paul checked in with 2 minutes left in the third quarter last night and never checked out. He's 36 years old. He basically told Monty Williams last night, don't take me out of the game. He went the whole way, the rest of the way. That's how important that game was to Phoenix, and that's how important that game was to Chris Paul, and the Jazz have to match that level, and we didn't because we didn't do it on the boards. We didn't do it by stopping transition. I'm not big into they wanted it more concept, but they wanted it. And they may have actually felt the need to want it more. Hopefully 2 losses to Western Conference teams, and our guys go back if we're going to be a playoff team, we have to be better than what we've been the last 2 games. We have to be physically match what Dallas hit. Larry Allen was in the middle of the line blocking the crap out of Rudy every time. We have to be physically better than we were in the first quarter against Dallas, and we've got to match the level that Chris Paul brought to the game for 50 minutes last night. That's the lesson on these 2 games. That's where we are. We were -10 in second chance points. That's been an advantage all year. -10 in transition. That's a problem. And we had our worst 3-point shooting night of the year, and we went to overtime. That's pretty good. This is not get despondent. This is, but let's not just sit here. I mean, I kind of sat here earlier this week and was like, yeah, whatever. We just missed a bunch of shots, which against Dallas, honestly, if we go play that exact same game against Dallas in the playoffs, I'm actually pretty confident we're going to win. I don't think that the mechanism that Dallas used against us would work for a 7-game series before we got comfortable and started to make shots. Phoenix, I'm not sure. I mean, last night was our worst offensive rating, second or worst offensive rating of the year. The only game worse was Brooklyn. That's our 51st game. It was our 50th offensive rating. Might give them a little credit. You don't go that far off the reservation of norm and end up just, playing that poorly without them doing something. But our second worst offensive rating of the year, and we went to overtime. Now, our defense was really good, but that's the really encouraging part of this is the fact that our defense against an elite offensive team played pretty well. By the end of the night, the offensive rating was a 108.5, it's okay because the offensive rebounds and the transition was not great. But we had not had, and the numbers don't show it entirely here, but we had not had a really good defensive game against an elite offensive team in a while. And I thought we did last night. So that's really encouraging. And then you just have to tighten up. But we also had a bunch of things, quite honestly. We're not perfect. We're really, really good, but we're not perfect. And we had a bunch of the items in which we're not perfect exposed. We're not big. We're not athletic. So when we can't jump with people. We can't run with people in that in that athletic manner. And we've got to be able to find ways to answer. And one of those is making shots and shooting 25% from shots. And we got some guys who don't have great track records in big playoff style games. And they're going to have to get comfortable in those settings. All right, that's my summation. It's a live show today. We're live on Instagram at DLock09. We're live on Twitch and YouTube at Locked On Live. We are live on Periscope and Facebook as well. So please jump aboard. The chat room is open. I'm going to start it off, get your comments and your questions. That's really what I had to lead us off today. I don't have a lot more for you. Well, I have a lot more. I always have more. But that's kind of my quick opening segment of the show to give you the thoughts and kind of where I am on last night's game. And then we've got Portland today, which is just seems criminally illegal to do that. Today's show is brought to you by grip6.com. I'm not wearing a Grip 6 belt. I'm wearing Jazz athletic shorts. I'm not wearing a Grip 6 belt, but I am when I do every night when I end up doing the show and say I am. So today I'm not going to lie to you and pretend that I am. It's grip6.com, the great Grip 6 belts, which have no holes, no flaps, and no bulk, an unlimited lifetime warranty, craftsmanship guaranteed, made in Utah. Trust me on this one. You get the Grip 6 belt. At first, you're like, what? And then it turns out it's your favorite belt ever. You can get I have the carbon fiber for my nice outfits. I have the honeycomb for my average outfits. I have the wood cut for different ones. I've got 3 different buckles. I've got 5 different belts. It's all I need. It's absolutely fabulous. The buckles and the belts are interchangeable. Go to grip6.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON to find out more. Today's show is also brought to you by rockauto.com. Rock Auto, reliably low prices, same prices for the do-it-yourselfer as it is for the professional. Amazing selection of all the parts your car will ever need. They have everything from engine modules to brake pads to tail lamps to carpets to whatever it is you need. Rock Auto catalog is unique, remarkably easy to navigate. Quickly see all the parts available on your vehicle. Best of all, the prices, as I said, are the same for the do-it-yourselfers as they are for the professionals. Don't go to the brick and mortar store and be beholden to their selection. Get the mass selection at rockauto.com. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, and all the parts your car will ever need. It's rockauto.com. Locked On Today is your daily podcast on all the biggest stories in the sports world, updating on everything you need to know in 20 minutes. Please make sure you follow Locked On Today. All right, I don't oh, by the way, one other note. Great adjustment by the Jazz on the mid-range shot where they played Rudy a little higher. They did some switches. They didn't let people get caught on their hips. That is also, though, what ended up causing a bunch of the rebounding issues last night. So that's kind of a catch-22 on where that goes when you're kind of dealing with those various things. Defensively last night, I thought there were some interesting matchup notes that I was going to relay to you when – let's see, where was it? DeAndre Ayton ended up going 5 of 9 over Rudy Gobert, which is really good for DeAndre Ayton. Devin Booker ended up going 0 for 4 when guarded by Favors and 1 of 4 when guarded by Gobert. So when the Jazz switched the big out on Booker, he really suddenly kind of fell back. Chris Paul's just amazing. Chris Paul shoots 61% from that right angle shot. It's just absolutely remarkable. All right, let me start on Instagram. Why do the Jazz seem to underperform on the biggest stage? Historically, since the franchise is awful when the pressure increases. Well, I would tell you that it's probably not a franchise issue over all these years. I don't know. It's an interesting, I feel like Jazz fans feel this. So your premise here is that you're Dustin 11 on Instagram is that we underperform. Underperform implies that we were better than our end result. Like Phoenix was better than we were last night. Are we dramatically better than Phoenix? I don't think so. I don't think, our record is great. We've had an amazing year. I don't think any of the 5 Western Conference teams are dramatically better than any of the other 5 great Western Conference teams. And I don't know what to do about Dallas. And then they lose last night in a ridiculous way. I really don't know what to do about Dallas. But so the implication, Dustin, is that when Darren Williams, Carlos Boozer, and Mehmet Okur lost to Kobe Bryant and Pau Gasol and Andrew Bynum, that they underperformed. I don't think that's true. That Karl Malone, John Stockton, and Jeff Hornacek lost to Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, they underperformed. I don't think that's true. When we lost to James Harden the last few years and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, that we underperformed. I mean, maybe the truth is we actually weren't better than those teams. So I'm not sure that I buy that we underperformed. The premise of the question is too difficult, is one I'm not sure I can totally buy. But thank you very much. Was Royce bricking? Royce was not shooting. In the last 2 games, he's missed 10 straight threes. And there was a big play late where he did not shoot. He's been criticized for it. He also probably been criticized if he shoots. When you've missed 10 straight shots, there's not a lot of good answers for you, quite honestly. And I think that's a bummer. He went 1 for 5 the night prior. So he's, 1 for his last 15 from 3. And I think he missed, if I remember correctly, and I was going to check this today before the game as we go right back at it, is I thought he missed his last 2 attempts the other night, so that he's actually now at 12 straight. He knows it, right? Like, I take it back. He made one at the 8:51 mark. So he's just missed his last 10. Like he missed shots. But yeah, it's a problem. Like if he can't make shots, it's a real problem because teams are not guarding him now. So he's now kind of into that where Ricky Rubio and Jay Crowder were, and it clogs up the offense and they're banging Rudy. And, Rudy's rim shots are and our 3-point shots go hand in hand. If one goes up, the other goes down, vice versa. And it's not dictated by us. It's dictated by the other team. Wondering the same thing about Royce guarding the top talent in the league night in and night out might finally be taking its toll. JP Chipman on Instagram, that has actually happened to him every year. He's shot 41% the first half of the season, 32%. B-Ball Index has a note that says that you end up with B-Ball Index has the percentage of time you guard the number 1 usage rate, and Royce leads the NBA in the amount of time guarding the number 1 usage rate player in the NBA. So it's big. All right, let's go to Paul on our live feed. What's the margin of error now that the Jazz are 0-2 against the Suns? A little bit, actually, the Suns might dictate. There's two 5-game stretches here that are going to really dictate what happens in the finals, in the standings. The first one starts for us tonight. Portland, Sacramento, Washington, Oklahoma City, and Indiana all at home. Like that 5-game stretch. And then we have another one, Toronto, San Antonio, Denver, Houston. Not as easy. Those 10 home games, we go grab 9 of those 10 home games, we're probably fine. They have a 5-game road trip back east. I don't know the exact order, but the 5 teams are Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Brooklyn, Boston, and New York, the 5 best teams of the East. And then they come right back to play us and I think the Clippers. They play the Clippers tonight as well. They're going to have to vastly overachieve to catch us in the standings, and we're going to have to throw up on ourselves on a few of these games. From a standpoint of the standings and us getting the 1 seed, the last 2 nights actually aren't that important. I mean, they would have been nice because wins are nice. The next games, the games we're supposed to win, are the ones that are the most important for us to hold the standings. If we actually have earned the right with our first half of the season to do to execute what we need to do. Thoughts on the Jazz struggles versus physical teams? Seems like the offense really struggles when the teams get physical with the Jazz. I think that's true. We're a movement team. We're a motion team. We're a get the blender going. We've got to be physically tough. We're better than we used to be in the sense that we used to have when we played Houston in the playoffs, we had nobody other than Donovan that when they switched 1 through 5 that could beat anybody off the dribble. So teams used to just switch us. And then Donovan was the one guy who could drive, and they could come off Crowder and Rubio and sit in the lane, and Donovan have nowhere to go or off Favors. Now we're a little different because we have Conley and we have Clarkson and we have Donovan who can all beat somebody one-on-one. So the answer is you've got to then blow up our whole rhythm and make it physical and not let us get off guys. And we got a back cut, but then when we're back cutting, we're not spaced the same way. So yeah, that's the answer. That's what teams are doing. They're both being physical with like middle, like an offensive lineman bamming against Rudy as he rolls. And then also they got up on top of our wings and didn't let us run our routes. Give Boyan credit. He went right back at Jay Crowder last night, was really impressed with that. Joe's the one who I think struggles the most with the physical play. He was talking incessantly to the officials last night and really felt like he was being hammered. I love the Jazz, the fight the Jazz had last night. A few more things go right in this game, we would have won. Alex, I'm actually with you on this, like completely. I mean, a little concerned on two levels. One, that for back-to-back nights against good teams, we didn't shoot well. Like there's an element where like there's some of our guys who like might have to be really, really open for those shots. And as it gets sped up and against the better teams, it makes me a little concerned on our shooting on back-to-back nights. It's nice to shoot well against Orlando, but I'd like to see in Chicago. I'd like to see us shoot well against some of the better defensive teams. Like the second time we played the Clippers in that back-to-back set when they actually played their guys, what did we do from three that game? 12 of 34, so not bad. Not this 27% things. I mean, we've only had – this is probably recency bias dictating my feeling. We shot 29% on the second night of the year from three. We shot 32% against the Knicks, which is a little unnerving because they're a great defensive team. We shot 31% against the Knicks the second time, so that's a little more unnerving because the sample size is now 100 3-point shots against good defensive teams. We shot 31% against Indiana from three when we were just exhausted. We shot 26% from three on a back-to-back against Miami and actually won, but that's a little concerning because they're a physical, good defensive team. We shot 32% 33% the next time we played Miami. So now that's, again, that same thing. We're at 100-shot sample size, and we're at 31% against a kind of the same defensive stylistic team. So those kind of have me a little concerned. And Phoenix, in 2 games against Phoenix, we have now taken 44 and 34 is 78 threes, and we are 23 of 78 from three against them. So that's those things have me a little bothered in the sense that we have multiple games against good elite defensive teams where we were not able to step up. The way you have to deal with this, ladies and gentlemen, is Headspace. That's actually not the answer, but Headspace is your daily dose of mindfulness in the form of guided meditations. An easy-to-use app, Headspace is the only meditation app advancing the field of mindfulness meditation through clinically validated research. So whatever the situation, Headspace really can help. 3-minute SOS meditation. Need some help falling asleep? Headspace can wind down sessions to get their members to swear by. Headspace approach to mindfulness can reduce stress, improve sleep, boost focus, and increase your overall sense of well-being. Backed by 25 professionals published studies and 600,000 5-star reviews. Headspace.com/LockedOnNBA. That's Headspace.com/LockedOnNBA. Today's show is also brought to you by BetOnline.ag. Great fun on Masters prop bets if you want to play that. All of Major League Baseball is going on as well right now. NBA futures are up. Brooklyn's at plus 225. Lakers at plus 325. Clippers at plus 578. We're at plus 800. Wait, last night's loss didn't change our odds to win the championship? What? The world's not falling? Oh, my goodness gracious. Who knew that such a thing would happen? Some other fun stuff they have. I just found recently, I'm not allowed to play it because I work in the NBA, but game props are kind of fun as well. And if you're into horse racing, the Arkansas Derby is this weekend, and that's the precursor to, and you can play all at betonline.ag. Use the promo code LOCKEDON, betonline.ag, and you will get yourself a 50% welcome bonus. If you haven't grabbed it yet, Locked On NBA Draft is a new show getting you ready for the upcoming NBA Draft. Multiple experts throughout the day or throughout the week, so go ahead and grab it. Let's go back to your questions. Why is Boyan insistent on pump faking in every three instead of just letting him fly? He and Royce overly hesitant to shoot the three and it stalls the offense. I mean, there was one play where this is really true by Ryan. Bojan said so after the game. He's not shooting the three as comfortably as he has been in the past, and he was making hay by driving to the basket and making plays in that way. And so I think that's might have been where his mindset was on that specific play. I think an interesting note is that he's at 85% at the free throw line this year. He was at 90 last year. That leads me to believe that his shooting from threes or free throw shooting seems to be, about the same, which makes me feel like his wrist is about the same. He's at 38% from three. His career's at 39. Like, I think he's getting back to normal, and it's going to come around on him. I'm pretty confident on a lot of those things with Bojan. What are your thoughts on the offensive rebound? Phoenix had 16. I felt like offensive rebounds were the difference in the game from Stacy, who's been a long-time loyal listener to the show. Stacy, two things. One, we're not tall, so we can't jump with them. Two, we need to get in their bodies and battle more. Three, when Rudy and Derek came out to affect the three-point shooting of the the mid-range shooting, then that left a gap behind them, and DeAndre Ayton just went to the rim and tapped it out. And let's give credit. Like, DeAndre Ayton's a 7-foot-tall number one pick of the draft, and he was masterful last night. Absolutely masterful last night in what he did. Jay Billis said after the game, we relied too much on Don, and the Jazz are one-dimensional. I feel like we finally actually have playoff depth with Mike. Are we too one-dimensional for the playoffs? I mean, if Mike plays like he did last night, we are. I mean, like, he did not have a good night last night, right? Like, I mean, I'm not into sugarcoating, and like Mike Conley last night was 5 of 16, 1 of 7 from three, had 4 assists. So, our second scorer is Mike, Bojan, Jordan. Jordan wasn't particularly great last night either at 4 of 12. So last night we were certainly one-dimensional. Can Mike Conley and Jordan Clarkson be successful at this point against massively important games? Jordan, I don't remember exactly what Jordan did in the playoffs last year, but I think he had a pretty decent stretch compared to his Cleveland stretch where he wasn't, he was not a good playoff player. Last year, I'm checking it right now because I didn't remember. Jordan shot 46% in the playoffs, 35% from three, taking 7 threes a game, averaged 17 points. So he showed, in that 7-game series last year against a not particularly good defensive team in Denver, he showed an ability to be able to make the plays that needed to be made. Let's continue. How do the Jazz total clutch minutes compared to the league, and how important is getting experience in clutch for the playoffs? We're way below because we've been so good all year. I'm not too worried about that. I think we have experience in it. I'd like to see us have some versatility in the clutch, but last night, like, nobody seemed to. I mean, Donovan wanted it, and there weren't a lot of guys scraping for it. There was one possession where I thought was telling of like how exhausted Donovan was. Donovan comes down and like summons to Mike to come guard Chris Paul because Donovan's got nothing left in the tank. Like, that's not. I mean, we're in overtime, so we got there. That's not great in the sense that we've worn Donovan out to that point. Like, I think we'll see the ramifications of that tonight because, I mean, he literally was on empty in the fourth quarter and summoning Mike Conley to come guard Chris Paul. I also, I don't know team dynamics, but it feels like someone should have seen that inside and said, hey, I'll get him for you. You're carrying the load. And Olson says, Joe needs to play in pace of Bogey as a closer, better defender, better pick and roll, better shooter this year. Maybe legitimate. This is where probably you're coaching two things. That day could come. I'm not sure you need to do it right now in the sense that you could, we need Bogey to be good, and he's obviously having a crisis of confidence at times this year, so that would be a pretty big blow. This is a classic example where you coach for 82 games and you don't coach for the playoff game, that happens in April because playoff games don't happen in April this year. Joe wasn't very good last night. So in last night specifically, I'm not sure I would agree with you. I think Bojan was better than Joe last night. Joe kind of seemed out of sorts and bothered by play and, had a really brutal turnover or two and just couldn't get a shot off. Couldn't get a shot off either of the last two nights, right? I don't think he has many, like if you want me to be things that are disconcerting, Joe Ingles 2 3-point attempts against Phoenix. Joe Ingles 2 3-point attempts against Dallas. So playoff caliber games, scouting reports are out. Joe's played 25 minutes against Dallas and last night played 27 minutes. So in 54 minutes, Joe's got four 3-point shot attempts. Like that's not his. That's not Joe being, at his maximum value for us. In transition defense, simply because we are small, is it lack of focus because we really have good transition defense at times? I'm just curious what the reason is. So we're small. We have a hard time building a wall defensively in transition because we're not long and we're not big. So we really have to get all the way back. When Rudy's battling for an offensive glass, I mean, Chris Paul's a genius. There was a play where Chris Paul literally dribbled in front of Rudy knowing he was keeping him behind and then hit Ayton for a layup. In an overtime game, that's why they're winning. That's why Chris Paul wins games. Those little tiny plays in a 2-point game are just incredible. I think the other aspect of it is, we're not big, so we really have to get back. And if Rudy's not back, the teams see it and they're so excited because Rudy's so dominant. I mean, a lot of parts of what we're deal with sometimes is that, he ends up, teams are so worried about Rudy that when Rudy's out of the game or Rudy's not there, they end up with an opportunity to be able to go, they just attack with such ferociousness because they know it's their chance. Is Chris Paul a top 5 point guard of all time? I gotta think so. I mean, I'm not the biggest Chris Paul guy, but boy, he's awesome. And what he did last night was truly awesome. He was the best player on the floor at 36 years old, finished the game, played the final 19 minutes, willed his team to win. There was a moment in the game where you could see it on television because that's all I can see also, where he literally turns to his team and be strong for the final possession. That's the kind of leadership. We don't have that, frankly. I mean, I don't see that out of anyone on our team. That kind of Chris Paul demanding your teammates to win the game and be strong and physical. We're not around the team as much as we once were, so it's hard for me to tell. But I didn't see Mike Conley. I don't think that's his vibe. He's winning Citizen of the Year. Chris Paul's winning Beep of the Year. And, I think that showed a little bit. All right, that wraps us. Have a great one. Thanks very much. This is Locked On Jazz. Go tell your smart device to listen to the most recent episode of podcast Locked On Today. Have a good day.